Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we are unpacking a fascinating, really highly focused concept drawn straight from our source text. We're talking about the Scholastic AI smartphone interface. Now, this is a radical idea. We're looking at taking artificial intelligence, putting it directly into the mobile devices of school students, and basically rewiring how they learn from the ground up. And I want to be clear right out of the gate. This is not just some minor update to an app you download. No, it's a massive conceptual leap in how educational technology operates right there in the palm of a student's hand.
It really begs the question, what happens when a student's biggest distraction becomes their smartest tutor? We all understand the fundamental tension when it comes to smartphones in education, right? If you've ever tried to pry a phone out of a teenager's hands, well, it's practically a hostage negotiation. Because on one hand, you have this incredibly powerful device with access to literally the sum of all human knowledge. But on the other hand, it's an infinite scroll of games, messaging, and those short-form video dopamine loops. So this core question is exactly what the Scholastic AI interface is trying to solve. It's asking us to completely reevaluate the tool itself. So let's look at this smartphone school dilemma a bit more closely. Think about the standard smartphone right now. Its primary design language is geared heavily toward entertainment and distraction. Honestly, it's built to capture attention for commercial reasons. It desperately wants you to keep scrolling. But if we shift gears and look at the conceptual shift proposed by our source material, the Scholastic AI interface, it's a totally different story. We're taking the exact same piece of hardware, the same glass, the same silicon, the same battery, but it's optimized entirely for focus and learning. It's essentially a complete rewiring of the phone's purpose when it's in the hands of a student. We are turning a device engineered for passive consumption into a powerhouse built for academic production.
All right, let's actually meet this Scholastic interface and see what makes it tick. So what is it exactly? Well, a Scholastic AI smartphone interface isn't just a third-party app you download and occasionally remember to open. Actually, scratch that. It's fundamentally different. It is artificial intelligence integrated directly into a smartphone's operating system, specifically optimized for school students. Because it's embedded right there at the root level of the device, the phone completely changes how it operates during school hours or study time. The OS itself actually understands the context of the user. It knows, hey, this isn't just a general consumer browsing the web. This is a student with specific cognitive needs, upcoming deadlines, and actual learning objectives.
And why does this matter so much? Because it represents a massive shift from a mere consumer device to a dedicated educational framework. If you care about efficient learning, this is absolutely crucial. You aren't just handing a teenager a supercomputer that happens to play host to an educational app or two. You're giving them a highly structured, intelligent environment. The AI is essentially the architect of that framework. It theoretically anticipates exactly what a student needs to succeed, rather than what an advertiser needs them to click on. It curates the whole digital space to foster deep concentration.
Which brings us to how this AI actually works for the student on a practical level.
Breaking down the source material, there are 3 core actionable pillars here. First up, direct AI integration. Like we just talked about, it's baked right into the phone's DNA. Second is student-centric optimization. This means the AI is trained specifically on educational parameters. Imagine a digital assistant that seamlessly helps decode a really complex math formula, or summarizes dense historical texts on the fly, or even actively blocks out digital noise during a study session. And it does all this without the user having to manually toggle 50 different settings. And third, mobile accessibility. It leverages the reality that, let's face it, students already carry these devices everywhere. It meets the student exactly where they are, whether that's on the bus, in the library, or walking between classes. There's no forcing them to log into some clunky, separate desktop portal at the end of the day.
To put this into perspective, we can conceptually visualize how this interface actually allocates its AI power to support a student's daily routine. Notice this breakdown. It's roughly a 40-30-30 split. About 40% of the system is dedicated to acting as a direct study aid. That means answering questions, providing real-time tutoring prompts, and generating practice quizzes. Then, 30% is allocated to focus mode. This is huge. It's the AI actively managing notifications, limiting access to non-essential entertainment apps, and effectively creating a digital quiet zone the second it detects the student is doing homework. And the final 30%? That's schedule management. It intelligently tracks assignments, predicts upcoming deadlines, and structures class times. It's just a remarkably balanced, holistic approach to managing a student's entire academic life through native AI.
So, where does this leave us when we look at the future of learning?
Returning explicitly to our grounding text, the ultimate takeaway is surprisingly concise. AI and smartphones for school students. It's a simple phrase, for sure, but it represents an entirely new frontier. Right now, the dominant cultural conversation revolves almost entirely around simply banning phones in classrooms, right? We're fighting this constant war of attrition against the technology. But this concept, it forces us to completely rethink that strategy. If the interface itself transforms into a highly tuned scholastic tool driven by AI, well, the smartphone goes from being contraband to being the absolute most essential, customized supply in a student's backpack. It's a complete shift from resistance to radical integration.
So we are inevitably left to wonder, is AI the end of the traditional classroom, or is it just the beginning of the ultimate personalized tutor? As this scholastic interface concept bridges the gap between wild theory and everyday reality, the fundamental dynamic of how we teach, how students focus, and how technology serves education is going to change forever. You're definitely going to want to keep your eye on this space because the integration of mobile tech and educational AI is moving incredibly fast. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.